good decisions are always made on good data. So you need to have good data to be able to do that. It needs to be reliable data. And two is talent decisions, and something that I face myself are often still made on on gut feel, even if you got very cool scientific technology available or research available to make you that. As we were launching our solution, we very quickly realized, and as we were engaging with the market as well, that hiring, as you said, was just one symptom of a much more, like I would say, bigger issue that we were seeing in the market. And the real problem is, I would say, way more strategic, which is around companies don't have a clear map of the workforce. I think it was a study done by PwC and Mercer that actually said only 2 out of the 5 CHROs have a clear view on their workforce in terms of what skills they have in-house. I think in 2 years' time, workforce strategy will be on par with financial strategy, right? So what I mean with that is that boards and investors will ask, do we have the capabilities, the right people capabilities, the right skills capabilities to deliver our plan? And companies will need the data to answer that. And we'll see a shift, from reactive hiring to more, I would say, proactive workforce shaping. And ironically, I honestly believe that talent acquisition will become more human. I know there are concerns, but I think it will become more human because of AI. Tech, I think the AI and the tech will handle all the repetitive tasks. Human connection, storytelling, and purpose will become central again.
First of all, thank you for listening to our EX Steps podcast, and apologies that I interrupt this episode. I promise I keep it short, but it's quite important and I need your help, please. I've been publishing these podcast conversations for 2 years now, and I see from the statistics that many of you are listening to my podcast on Spotify or Apple, and some of you are watching on YouTube. Thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed the episode so far. I plan on making more episodes, but in order to do so, as I'm a one-man show, I would like to ask for your help, please. It doesn't cost you anything except for maybe 1 minute of your time. Please subscribe to my podcast on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to my YouTube channel. With your subscriptions, I will be able to reach more listeners, which in turn helps me get further interesting guests for you to listen to. So if you will, it's a win-win. Subscribe, and if you want, you can also leave a like or a comment, or tell me if there's anyone you want me to speak to in one of my episodes. Thank you so much for your support, and now let's start the next episode. From Surinam through the Netherlands, the UK, the Americas, and to the world. Shaped by many diverse experiences in the HR space for more than 20 years. A serial entrepreneur in the HR space. What is the story behind that? Welcome to another Employee Experience Labs podcast from the Munich Podcast studio. Employee Experience Labs podcasts are about HR tech, employee experience, shared services, and other interesting topics around HR at the workplace. Today's episode is an addition to our startup and AI series we are running, and we continue in the talent acquisition space as there is so much going on. But we look at it today from a very different angle that I haven't seen before, and I'm very happy to have had the chance to learn more about. I had the pleasure to speak with the founder and CEO of INOP. Meet Aniel Mahabier. Founded in the space of talent assessment in 2022, INOP has pivoted significantly to meet the needs of their customers while staying true to their original idea and identified gap in the market. Not only is the pivoting story fascinating, but also where Aniel saw the need to found INOP in the first place. Culture fit. But before I talk any further, let's jump right in. Aniel Mahabier, founder and CEO INOP. Hello, Aniel. It's so great to see you today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing well, Volker. Thanks for asking. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your podcast. I was really looking forward to this.
Now, me too, Aniel. And I have to admit, we probably would have been a bit faster if we would have found an appointment that works for both of us quicker. But you know what? I'm very happy that we have it today on, I think, almost one of the warmest day of the year already. So I think this is a good omen. Great weather for a great podcast. Anil, before we go into the weeds and into the details, let's start with you. Who is Anil? What is your background? What is your experience? Where are you coming from? Tell us a bit about you.
Cool. That sounds good, Volker. And I was actually born in Surinam and raised in the Netherlands. Um,
Raised in the Netherlands.
Raised
Wow.
in the Netherlands. My parents actually moved in the mid 70s to the Netherlands.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
raised in the Netherlands, followed my education in the Netherlands as well. And
Ah,
in terms of who I am, I'm married. I got a couple of kids. I got 3 kids. Uh,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And I'm someone who's, I would say, very international. I've been very curious in terms of in mind, and I've always had a deep interest in how business actually operates, uh,
Yeah.
what drives their success, and the people behind it as well. In terms of study, I studied HR, uh,
Ah,
so I got a bachelor's degree in HR. But funny enough, I would say that most of what shaped me in terms of who I am today is actually came through my professional career, meaning outside of the classroom. And when I look at my background, I think over the years I've worked in and around the world of HR. I would say talent,
yeah.
data, and technology. And if I may, before INOP, I founded a company called Cglytics, which is a corporate governance analytics company that became
Ah,
a global player,
wow.
acquired by a company called Diligent. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Diligent is one of the largest GRC SaaS provider.
Okay.
We help boards and investors make better governance decisions using our
Mhm.
data and our technology, basically. And
Amazing.
there were two things, Volker, that taught me. One was good decisions are always made on good data. So you need to have good data to be able
Yes.
to do that. It needs to be reliable data. And two is talent decisions, and it's something that I face myself. Are often still made on on gut feel, even if you got very cool scientific and
Yeah.
technology available or research available to make you that. But you can see that even in my case, like I made some wrong decisions in the past as well when it came down to hiring.
Mhm.
I have, as I mentioned, a deep background in HR as well. Next to being an entrepreneur, spent roughly around, I would say, 20+ years in HR, in variety of roles, both nationally as internationally. Internationally in the US, a couple of years where I
Mhm.
lived and with my family as well, and in the UK, a couple of years where I also lived as well, and now based in the Netherlands, basically.
Amazing. So you are a serial entrepreneur. You are one of the rare breed of HR folks who understand data inside and out, and you are very international. You have the full package. That's really interesting. And yeah, there's just one thing that came to mind when you talked about decision making and data. When I did my PhD, I had a colleague there who also did her PhD, and she did it on data and decision making, and how different cultural backgrounds influence how you use it. And interesting thing is for Germany and the Netherlands, it was very similar, which is we look at the data first in general, and then we let these data inform our decisions.
Mhm.
Now, the further in Europe you go to the south, it is you make the decision and then you find the data to support the decision.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's very different. I also found it very interesting, but somehow I thought like, yep, makes sense. Anyway, let's talk about today. So you are the founder and CEO of INOP. Let's talk about this first. What is INOP? When did you found INOP? We already know it's your second company, your second founding startup. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, good question, Volker. And Volker, just going back, if you don't mind, to the cultural
Yeah,
dimension and differences in how you use data
yeah,
in a way. It's like cultural background is definitely one, but you even see that in organizations and different type of organizations as well, like how they use data. When I look at my previous company, we were serving different type of audiences that was leveraging the data.
hmm,
Each of them were using the data in a slightly different way. So on the
yeah,
one hand, we were supporting boards who wanted to make sure that they had data and information at the fingertips, basically, that will allow them to have a constructive dialogue.
yeah, Yeah.
with their investors and their other stakeholders. But on the other hand, we were also serving institutional investors, and there the data was more utilized in a way where trying to understand the risks and being able to engage on that behalf, right? So
Yeah.
even like one is yes from a cultural background, even within the companies and the type of companies you come across, data is being used in a slightly different way. I
Different
wanted
ways
to
depending on your role. Yeah. That's very interesting. And I have a feeling we come to these topics of data and culture a bit later again in the podcast, maybe?
Agreed. Agreed. So going
That sounds
going
good.
back to your second question,
Yes.
I think it's a great question, and I think it's important to actually bring you the journey that we've been on with
Yeah.
INOP. When we started, which is back in 2022, like mid 22, INOP was laser focused on, I would say, fixing what was broken in recruitment. So we're very recruitment focused.
And how did you come to that conclusion that there is something that is broken that you want to fix?
One is based on my own experience,
Yeah.
having been in the different HR roles. Two is um, what you're reading in the market. You
Yeah.
see high attrition rates. You see
Yeah.
loss of productivity. You
Yeah.
see concerns about new generations, especially the younger generations, who are often rising and have a different perspective on who to join, who to work for, etc. And then you look at how the recruitment applications, the recruitment process are engineered, and they are not engineered in a way to meet those new demands, for example, right?
Mm.
And so that led me to say, like, I think even with all the new technology coming into play,
Yeah.
it is still something that is broken and that needs to be fixed.
And I think, Anil, what's very interesting, you said it in a by sentence, but I think this is something that really differentiates you. When you talk about recruiting, you talk about people leaving an organization. You talk about people not being happy at an organization, right? When I usually speak with folks who are either working in recruiting technology jobs or are thinking about that, they come from, we must get as many people into the funnel as possible and automate decision making, and the rest will go. You are saying, like, wait, maybe it's the wrong people that we get, and therefore they are leaving. So we need to look into that from a bit of a different angle, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. If you look at the market and you look at, let's be honest. When you look at the recruitment market, it's a highly, I would say, saturated market, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of players in there, and there are a lot of new players coming in there.
This is where all the money is.
Exactly, and most of them are focused on creating efficiency in the workflow. And I think you said it right. Looking at the funnel, how can I actually move quicker to the funnel, basically, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are also seeing, and I think you mentioned you used the word wrong people. And if I may just come back to that, Volker, if it's okay with you, it's
Yeah.
not so much about the wrong people. I think you bring in sometimes good qualitative people, very experienced people, but there is just a mismatch with the culture of the company.
Hmm.
They don't believe in the values that you have, or they come to that conclusion later on that there's
Yeah.
conflict with their own values, right? And that's where you see wrong hires being made,
Yeah.
and individuals leaving, relatively in a short time frame. If you look at the younger generation, there's been various studies being published. They leave, like more than 50 to 60% of them leaves within 6 to 12 months after joining company. Why? Because there's a mismatch with who they are and
Hmm.
what's important to them.
And I think this is a big one, right? Because the statistics are also clear. It is so expensive to fill a position. So if you have to fill it multiple times because you have the wrong fit for it, not from a skills perspective, but from a culture or mindset a fit perspective, then yeah, you at least pay twice because you need to fill again. And this is something where I have not seen many companies focusing on when it comes to technology and their service.
Agreed. Agreed.
Now, we started already to talk about this, and we started to talk about talent acquisition, which is one of the truly high competitive environments in HR technology.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is so highly competitive? What is your view? Why? Because it's really for me, when I look at the technology landscape, this is where all the investment goes in recruiting, right? There are, I think there are, look at payroll. There are two companies who are doing payroll. If you then look at the technology they use for that, it's actually just one. It's just SAP. That's the only company who has a global payroll system. In recruiting, there are so many. Why do you think there are so many? Is it because the issues are not solved? Is it because there are so many issues to be solved? What's your view?
There are a variety of issues, and I think you mentioned some of them. And if you look at all the players out there, there are not a lot of players out there that are operating across the full recruitment life cycle, right, or the
Yeah,
full talent
yeah.
cycle. You see players that are very niche and very focused and trying to solve one part of it. And you see providers out there that are trying to have a more integrated approach where they actually form part of a solution that's provided by a different player, right? So it's a large addressable market, hence why you see a lot of companies actually moving towards that. And it's an issue in general that if you look at the future, um, like if you just look at how the landscape is evolving, there will be a talent shortage, and then that has been
Yeah.
predicted, right? So companies are facing that challenge. So I feel like it's also like it's an opportunity for new providers coming in to help them to find that talent and to rethink how they actually should be
Yeah.
sourcing talent as well.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if we can say there's a talent shortage coming, or if we must say it's here,
Yeah, agree.
which I think it is. It's so difficult to get the right people,
Yeah,
whatever right means, right? It has many components, but
yeah,
it's really difficult.
yeah.
Um, when you think about the market, and I hope you don't mind me asking this question because I have not found anyone who comes with the value proposition that you have. Who would you say is a competitor for you,
Yeah, let me
if any?
let me take a step back on that question because I think it's important that I outline to you like the pivot that we made and then who we
Yeah,
see as a competitor in there. Because when we started as the very focused on recruitment, there were many competitors out there, right? So it's very difficult to differentiate yourself, even if we were saying like we're matching people and companies based on shared
yeah,
purpose and culture fit, right?
yeah,
We use AI to do that at a scale.
yeah,
And then when you're just focusing on that, you do come across, all the ATS players out there. You have
yeah,
a ton of AI powered solutions out there. But you're right, there are not a lot of players out there that are having the focus that we have. That next to skills,
the
and
culture fit.
we also look at culture fit as well, right? Um, but I wanted to go back to the pivot that we made, which
Yeah,
also uh, you know helped me to answer who we see as a competitor out there, right?
yeah, yeah,
So as we were going through that, as we were launching our solution, we very quickly realized, and as we were engaging with the market as well, that hiring, as you said, was just one symptom of a much more, like I would say, bigger issue that we were seeing in the market. And the real problem is, I would say, way more strategic, which is around companies don't have a clear map of the workforce. And I think there are a lot of studies out there where basically, I think it was a study done by PwC and Mercer that actually said only two out of the five CHROs have a clear view on their workforce in terms of what skills they have in house. Or 80% of
Yes.
the 80% of the business leaders lack confidence in, and this is a research I think that was done by Gardner, lack confidence in understanding what skills they have and
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
right skills to be competitive and to be ready for the future as well, right? So I think taking all of that, not knowing what skills that they have, what they will need, or how to align that with the future of their business, which is I would say it's a quite risky, both from a strategic perspective now, but also from a regulatory perspective, investor
Yeah.
standpoint. That made us realize actually that the real problem behind all of it was actually strategic workforce readiness.
Hmm.
So we started to pivot, right, from there in conversation with some of our existing clients, and
Mhm.
based on the need that we were seeing in the market as well. So it wasn't just about who to hire, but it was about what capabilities do we need,
Yeah.
and actually do we have them?
And exactly, what do we have, right? Because very often my My experience is hiring managers are quick to say, let's go to the market, let's hire someone. I need this skill versus like checking out internally
Agreed.
who do we have who could fit into this position. And I think between us it's very clear it's so much cheaper to place internal talent on a role, and it's so much quicker to productivity than going externally.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there's another layer in there that have helped us to open our eyes and that we're also focused on is like the people that we have, are they actually aligned with our company mission, our
Yeah.
company vision, strategy, and the culture of the company, right? So understanding that you can also, prevent turnover and mitigate it as well. So we started as a recruitment focused tech company. We've now evolved into a full AI powered workforce intelligence platform. And I would say think of it as helping companies to go from talent reaction, I would say, to talent foresight across the
Mm.
whole talent lifecycle.
That is very interesting. Tell us a bit more about this. What does that encompass? I'm pretty sure you're still looking at it from the external to internal angle, meaning the recruiting. But what does it mean? What other technologies or technology skills are you providing your clients to actually manage their workforce in that way?
Yeah, good question, Volker. To be able to answer that, I'm going to give you like a landscape in how we're leveraging the AI, right?
Yeah.
In this space. So it's good to say like we're a fully AI first company, and with that, and it goes back to my opening that you need to have good data, you need to have good reliable data to
Yeah.
help you get good insights as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've spent a good amount of time trying to figure out which AI model should we be using, how should we
Mm.
be using them as well, plus how should we be stacking them up, right, to give that actionable reliable insight.
Yeah.
Next to that, we've also said what data are you going to use. Like there's a lot of large language models out there that all been pre-trained that you can leverage. But what we'll be seeing in the market is that when we look at the landscape and look at vendors and suppliers in this space, a lot of them are using existing taxonomies. Call it ONET, call it ESCO, call it Livecast, and a lot of them are actually built on historical events or historical views. So we felt like they are very useful as a foundational layer, but they are at the
Mm.
same time they're outdated. Right.
Mm.
So we wanted to come up with, when you talk about the future work and future readiness, you need to make sure that you have data that is also looking forward. So
Yeah.
we started to look at labor market signals. We started to look at, what are companies actually posting in jobs? What are
Yeah.
actually companies, how are they changing their strategy? So looking at more business contextual perspective as well. And embedding that, we looked at people and their resumes and the backgrounds and what
Yeah.
skills do they have in there, so that you can also start coming up with transferable skills as well, right?
Yeah.
So all of that helped us to build our own, I would say, taxonomies, meaning our skills taxonomies, our own culture taxonomies as well, our own values taxonomies, and I can
Yeah.
just continue on. So that helped us to create an AI model, basically, which is like a multi-layered AI model that is leveraging unstructured data, but also structured data based on the taxonomies that we have built, who can then actually provide the insight in a more reliable way. But more importantly, we also provide the transparency, which I think is quite often is something that is being missed. Uh,
Especially in AI. Yes. The
exactly.
black box.
The black box. We wanted to break open the black box. We actually want to
Mm.
tell you, these are the insights, and this is where the insights are coming from, and these are the connections between the insights as well, so that
Mm.
our audience and our users can actually understand the insights that we're providing and how to actually cope with them as well.
Mm. Very interesting. I think there's so much in there. I mean, AI first. This is a differentiator for today, but also um, the multi-layered mm, AI framework that you built. Values framework. I've never heard about that before. That's very interesting. Skills inventory. I understand. Uh, Tell us more about what does the value framework or value inventory look like, and how are you utilizing it in your solution?
So values framework is built on various lenses. Basically, one is we've looked at research, scientific research done in the past in terms of defining what's important to individuals,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
from a culture perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
from a business perspective as well. Like what values do you quite often see in companies, and how companies actually operate on the basis of
Mhm,
those
mhm,
values.
mhm.
And then we also look at from a professional perspective as well, right? So we've taken various lenses to help us to determine how to build up that taxonomy, basically. So that gives us a very rich taxonomy that we can then apply within our model, and
Mm.
then help to utilize that in understanding how companies operate and what they
Mm.
find important. We look at their missions, we look at
Mhm,
their
mhm.
vision, we look at their culture statements, their value statement, and from
And then you abstract this into the taxonomy.
exactly, exactly. And the same applies to individuals as well, right? What they say. And there's also like, the other thing of it's looking at generational differences as well, right? So a younger generation professional might have
Yeah.
completely different things in mind when you talk about what are values to them, compared to
Yes.
a boomer, for example, or a Gen X, like who I am, right?
Don't date us too much. Don't date us too much.
Agree. So hopefully that answers your question, Volker.
No, it's amazing. Let me pivot a bit because there's so much in there, but there are two questions that come to mind to me. Number one is when I think about that, and I'm not still being a startup. What's the size of companies that your solution can support? Is this something for smaller companies, something for mid-sized companies? Is it something for, large multi-country enterprises
Yeah.
or everyone? How would you say the target audience or target market for your solution is?
Yeah. So I would say on the one hand, we work best for, I would say, mid-sized to large enterprises, basically,
Mhm, mhm,
that care about when it comes down to culture and want to build high-performing, purpose-aligned teams. And we can
mhm,
easily plug into their existing HR tech. We can provide a screening technology to do that and give that additional insight that
mhm,
they
mhm,
would probably look for.
mhm,
Um, so that is one part, right? On the other hand, if you are, let's say, a CHRO or CEO, especially in finance, tech, or consulting,
mhm,
and you're asking like, are we ready for the future, or you're
mhm.
facing a talent shortage or transformation, then we are a great fit, right? We can actually provide you the intelligence and the insights and tools to do that, right? Um, so I would say we're perfect fit when it comes down to mid-sized to large, when it comes
Mhm.
down to strategic workforce planning and enhancing hiring. But at
Yeah,
the same time, we can also help out small enterprises and scale ups, yeah, with our hiring solution
yeah.
and some of our solutions that we have in house as well.
Very interesting. The next question then comes immediately to mind, Anil. When you talk about mid to large size companies, they often have already a big technology stack in the HR frame. How do you or don't you integrate with that? And is this something that is a completely separate standing solution, or can you integrate, for example, in a success factors in a workday or other solutions?
Yeah. So I think the best way to answer that is that we exist because we want to help companies move forward and help
Yeah,
to solve the challenges that they're coming across.
yeah, yeah.
On the one hand, we offer a SaaS platform, but on the other hand, we were very focused on creating APIs that can seamlessly integrate into, let's say, existing HR tech stacks. The larger companies use, the well-known players like Workday, SAP, and etc.,
Mhm,
or they use existing ATS systems like, a greenhouse, for example, right? So
mhm,
we thought it like in our approach, we on the one hand we were very thoughtful about creating a SaaS platform that could be
mhm,
easily leveraged, but on the other hand, being very focused on helping companies to move forward and helping them in a way so that we can easily integrate, so they
mhm,
can
mhm.
leverage our data, our technology, and our taxonomies, and even our you know, we have very cool widgets. They can even leverage that as well, right? The focus is really there to easily integrate, seamlessly integrate into the systems.
Yeah, fantastic. And when I think about the hiring process, would it be that you're also seamlessly integrating into this? Because, candidates are very are very sensitive when it comes to how many technologies they have to go after, how often they have a change of experience. They are very jumpy these days. Um, would this, would you say like your solution would be the top layer, and this is where the folks would go through, or is it coming up as part of an API integration into your existing ATS and your workflow? How does it look from a candidate perspective?
Yeah, good. Both, right? So on the one hand, we're with the hiring element, we're operating the top of the funnel,
Yeah,
meaning helping to source
yeah.
way where you get a better insight on who's a good match and not a good match,
Mhm,
basically. So
mhm,
so
mhm,
it's the screening that we
mhm,
offer. Some companies actually want to go one step further, so we also facilitate the reaching out to candidates,
mhm.
engaging with the candidates as well, right, via different channels as well. But we also have companies that are actually saying, like, you know what, we love the technology that you have. We just want to call that technology, package in a certain way, integrate it into our own system and solutions, and offer it back to the market as
And then give the feedback to the recruiter or to the hiring manager.
ex-
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's very nice. It's so flexible. That's really really good to have these days, right? Because this is such a complex market, and from an HR technology perspective, I never want a complex technology stack. I want it as easy as possible, and that sounds good. That sounds really interesting. Um, Pivoting one more time. So, um, we live definitely in the world of AI, and you are an AI first company, or an AI first technology. This is difficult to say. An AI first. Um, when it comes to AI, there are a lot of um difficulties around today, particularly how you're even closer to Brussels than I am, right? The EU AI Act, for example, or the laws that we have in the US, in New York or California coming up, and particularly in the recruiting space, this is something where my colleagues or my peers and I, we see a lot of scrutiny when it comes to the utilization of AI. How do you think about this, and how do you manage these concerns, or also then the legislative and regulatory landscape, so that you can stay as a relevant solution across as many markets as possible?
Yeah, good question, Volker. So let me just take them in different parts, if that's okay.
Yeah, of
In
course.
terms of the landscape, the regulatory landscape, and it's actually like, AI is going so fast, right? At
Yes.
the moment, and like I recall with my first company back in 2014 when I founded that, we had AI slightly embedded into in our applications,
Yeah.
and it was people thought it was cool, but they were not really interested in it. Yeah. Hey, um,
Wasn't yet the hype, yes.
exactly. 2021, 2022, when I started to work on INOP, AI was emerging, right? 2023, 2024, I think even 2024, it just exploded.
Yes.
And you see that it's actually reshaping in many ways the market. It's
Yeah.
reshaping our lives, right? Think about with OpenAI,
Yeah.
ChatGPT, how
Yeah.
people are leveraging that, right? And
Yeah.
from different generations, that's actually taking in place as well. So having some you know oversight on how it's being used, how it's being deployed. I think it's great to see that all these different directors are putting in place to
Mhm.
help us to get some better control of what's happening in the market, basically. So going back to your question in terms of from a regulatory perspective, looking at all the different things, most of them I think are put in place because things are going so fast.
Mhm.
Being able to better control it and have better oversight on it as well. And the other thing is also transparency. Like
Yeah.
why, like how is it being utilized? How what is fueling it, and is it being done in an like its integrity?
Mhm.
It's like one of the pillars that's being very
Yeah.
important, right?
Yeah.
As well, right? So um, all interesting stuff when it comes down to the AI landscape. I would say, if I would look at how we are utilizing and leveraging AI, and how we are actually tackling some of the concerns in the market.
Yeah.
I would say we are very intentional in how we actually use AI. Yeah.
Mhm.
AI doesn't replace the human judgment, right? In our view, and how
And the human decision making.
exactly it just
Yeah.
enhances it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we are not a bolt-on in that case. It does sit in our DNA. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do, and I think you picked on that, you mentioned the word black box, right? AI is being perceived as a black box. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we were very keen on when we were actually developing our own models is that we have this multi-dimensional, multi-layer model
Mhm.
where we actually say, this is going to be a bit technical, right? Layer one is basically what everyone else is doing in the market. Yeah, they're using existing LLM models like BERT, for example, which is looking at different, like just looking at contextual analysis,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then on that basis makes a recommendation. You have no clue how those recommendations are being put together because it's not visible, right?
Yes.
And this is where our layer two comes in place, where we actually say, like, we have good, reliable data, high
Uh-huh.
quality data that we've harvested ourselves. We've built our own taxonomies as well, right? So we, on top of that, we can then start utilizing and leveraging that data basically in a way where we can actually say, like, you know what, when you look at skills, these are the good overlapping skills, and these skills are actually lapping, are
Mhm.
actually missing, right? And
Mhm.
we can
Mhm.
show that, and we can show that, and we can then adjust the match quality on that base as well. So
Mhm.
we're very focused on deploying transparency,
Mhm.
which then
Mhm.
increases fairness as well and understanding as well, and mitigates biases from our perspective as well.
Yeah. And then when we think about, the EU AI, for example, you would say you're in full compliance and your solution can be utilized, for example, across the EU for what is to be known or what is known about the EU AI Act, for example, today.
Correct.
It's amazing. It's really, particularly in recruiting, this is a difficult situation because, as you said, AI is developing so quick, and it's difficult to follow. It's difficult to follow not only from a technology perspective, but also from a legal and from a cultural perspective,
Agreed.
because there are um, so many facets you have to look into and you have to have in mind. And what I often encounter is that it is regulatory and legal questions, but not always the colleagues or the people that are the experts in regulatory or in the legal space, the lawyers, they're not the closest to actually the technology.
Agreed.
And are you helping your clients with those conversations so that you are allowed to be enabled, or did you have any experience like this with the clients that you have today?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and hence why we got to a point in our, when I mentioned our pivoting, that we looked at bigger problems that companies
Yeah.
actually are dealing with, and helping them to do that, helping them to leverage AI so they can actually solve those problems in a faster way and at scale as well. Which also led us to go to the strategic workforce side, right? So that is really something that came to birth, if I may say it like that, when we were talking to some of the large companies that were actually saying, like, normally I would bring in a consultant, one of the large
Mhm.
consultancy firms, and it would take them like 4 to 5 months and even longer to basically analyze our company, understand
And
the
quite
skills,
some money.
and
Quite
and
some
and a
money.
lot of a lot of spend there as well, right? So, and we were saying to them, like, hang on, but we can actually, like, with what we have and the technology that we have in house, we can give you in real time, in like
Yeah.
a very quick, short time frame. We can tell you what the skills do you actually have, what are the skills that, where's the gap, basically,
Yeah.
what are the emerging skills in the market. Should you think about internal mobility when it comes down to the upskilling and reskilling? What talent do you have in place?
Yeah.
Transferable are they, for example? And you know what? Let's look at your strategy of the company, right? And look at from a business context perspective. Do you have the right skills to deliver your strategy, right? And you mentioned legal requirements as
Yeah.
well. One of the things that we're able to do is look at CRSD and look at ESG or look
Mm,
at the SEC. They
mm,
all,
mm.
or actually look at what investors are actually asking at the moment. Like if you look at the large investors like BlackRock or Norges, for example, they are like this whole workforce planning, workforce readiness, skills gap analysis, upskilling, reskilling slowly goes in from like an HR related topic into a more governance related topic that
Mhm.
investors are very keen in understanding, which makes a lot of sense, right? So yes, we do have those conversations, and that is also a pivot to an area where we think we can actually help the clients that we have or the market in general, basically, to get quicker access and to get more ready quicker in a quicker way, and as you said, in a more efficient
What's
way as
coming?
well.
Yeah,
When it comes down to workforce readiness.
yeah. And when I think about recruiting and skills and values, I have a good idea where the information is coming from. It's coming from the CV, it's coming from maybe your LinkedIn profile or something like that. When you analyze what skills are available within a firm, what are you ingesting? Where is this information be drawn from?
Yeah. So on the one hand, we ask companies when we work with them to get access to their HR data sets.
Yeah, yeah.
Some companies actually are great at, during their review periods, they actually identify the skills that their staff members have and where they need to develop. So we can actually
Mm.
leverage that. On the other hand, what we also do is, it's a very simple, straightforward approach. We ask, like, what's the job position, and we also ask if the company also has that, basically, if they have a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah,
And with
yeah.
that and a resume, for example, as you rightfully said
Mhm,
as well, right?
mhm,
So one
mhm,
is HR systems and the data that we have. Two is looking at their professional data, whether it's on
mhm,
LinkedIn or whether it's on their own resumes. And then
mhm,
we're able
mhm.
to leverage all of that. And with that, we can then start mapping employees to basically our taxonomy. So we build our job
Mhm,
taxonomy, meaning a job classification system, and then
mhm.
those are all supported by different type of taxonomies. So typically, what we will do is we will map the data that we have to our taxonomies. We will go back to the client, ask them to confirm if we're doing the right mapping, and work
Mhm,
with them.
mhm.
If clients don't like the taxonomies that we have, or they actually want to enhance it with their own skills taxonomy or a third party taxonomy, we're very flexible. We can
Mhm, mhm.
just all of that, and then map on that basis, and then
Mhm,
provide
mhm.
the information back. With that, our engine is going to start running, basically, and then we'll start providing skills gap analysis. Basically, one is understanding, and two is
Yeah.
where the gap is. The other thing that we also do in that ingestion is that we look at things like organization charts. We look at the company's own job descriptions as well.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
look at business strategy information that's available in terms of materials and
yeah,
documentations. We take all of that and
yeah,
feed the AI with that, basically, which will, on the one hand, help us to analyze
yeah.
with the interpretation. But we also have, like a generative AI. We use predictive AI so that we can actually say, like, things like, for example, you are forecasting X number of FTEs, you should
Yeah.
reforecasting that. Or we can actually say, like, based on the strategy that you have, and then we can actually look at what your competitors are doing and analyze that as well with our AI. We can then say, like, you're missing a range of roles, you're missing a range of skills, right? I think the
Mhm.
role in terms of roles that are actually becoming redundant could be is something that we also highlight, and roles that you should be creating that are actually going to create more value
Yeah.
to your company as well to help you, realize your strategy. So that's
Very
how the
interesting.
ingestion and
Yeah.
flow actually works.
That's very interesting. This is a supercharger for strategic workforce planning, which is something I have to say. Um, me being or haven't been a consultant for a long time of my life as well. Even like 15 years ago, we were talking about that, but even until today, I don't know many companies who are actually capable of doing that. And with that capability that you are providing there, that is a efficient and effective way to actually finally go there and do that. And today, even more necessary than ever before. Going back to the beginning, we are in the space and in the area where there is not the talent out there anymore that you need, where you need to work with what you have and see how you make that better and more relevant for impact in your own firm.
Agreed.
Amazing. And Neil, time flies when you have fun. And I don't want to take too much time from you, but when we think about INOP, when we think about AI, when we think about HR in general, where would you say where are we in that space in like, usually I'm asking in like 5 years, but I think in today's world 5 years are way too far out. I mean, 5 years ago, I think maybe 1% of the whole population of the earth understood and knew um what Gen AI is. Today, everyone knows it, or not everyone, but most of the people. So I'm not asking 5 years, but 2 to 3 years from now, how do you think the world is?
Yeah. So if the question is where do I see INOP and the talent
Yes.
acquisition space in 5 years, I think or in 2 years' time. I think in 2 years' time, workforce strategy will be on par with financial strategy, right?
Hmm?
So what I mean with that is that boards and investors will ask, do we have the capabilities, the right people capabilities, the right skills capabilities to deliver our plan? And companies will need the data to answer that. Yeah. And I think INOP will be the intelligence layer across the entire talent lifecycle. That's at least that's my vision, right?
Yes.
Organization to mobility to and ESG, for example. And we'll see a shift. I think
Yeah.
when it comes down to from reactive hiring to more, I would say, proactive workforce shaping. And
Yeah. Yeah.
ironically, I honestly believe that talent acquisition will become more human. I know there are concerns, but I think it will become more human because of AI. Tech, I think the AI and the tech will handle all the repetitive tasks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Human connection, storytelling, and purpose will become
Very interesting.
central again.
Very interesting. But also in line with what I actually hope for, right? That we can utilize technology to take care of the more mundane things, the more administrative things, but also enable us to have the more human conversations, right?
Agree.
Um, this is That's fantastic. That's cool. Now, one last question coming back to today.
Good.
When you think about today, when you think about your space, your area, what are the biggest challenges that you see today, and how are you approaching them?
Good question. I think the biggest problems that I see is talent scarcity,
Mm,
which is the gap between the needs of a company and the availability, which is growing, right? Two is especially in the when it comes down to AI is biasness, right?
mm,
When it comes down to, I would say, in systems, in AI languages and decision making, we need better data. We need
yeah,
better tech
yeah.
on this. Yeah. And then it's
And I have an idea where we get that from, the better tech.
and then it's also about lack of visibility, right?
Yeah,
Most companies don't really know what capabilities they have or need.
yeah,
So I think when it comes down I would say the top three challenges. I think these are the top three challenges that I see in the market these days.
fantastic. And Neil, thank you so much for your time. It was a really interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. Um, a lot in there to reflect, a lot in there to think through, but it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you for your time as well, Volker. It was a pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for that.
No, lovely to have you. Have a wonderful rest of the day, Anil.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.